you actually wrote a whole book basically telling people to stop diagnosing their partners. So I'm so curious, what was the moment in your therapy practice when you realized, oh shit, this has gotten completely out of control?
It was a slow build of people bringing these terms in more and more, but it was a couple weeks in a row where I had people either calling me separately to let me know that they had diagnosed their partner with narcissism or borderline, or people coming into like a first session saying, just so you know, the problem is that they are bipolar and they're super toxic and I missed all their red flags. And I realized that I was spending so much time with people talking them out of these terms as opposed to doing the actual work of therapy. And then as soon as I saw that, I just saw it everywhere.
You're listening to Mind Love with me, Melissa Monti. We want to call everything progress, but we rarely look at the downsides. I feel like this has been the biggest awakening really in my 30s. It's like my 20s and it can really spread across the board on what this applies to. But it's like my 20s, I was just like, oh yeah, this sounds like a great idea. Of course I want this. Yes, free stuff for all. Oh, more language. And then in my 30s, I'm like, oh yeah, we were doing all that without actually looking at potential harm this is causing, including everyone having the language, but not quite having the right understanding of it.
Yes. And this is like the hard line to walk, because if you talk about the ways in which these words are being misused or weaponized, sometimes people are like, but it's better that we know what these words mean and that we're on the lookout and people are more aware. And it's like, two things can be true. It's better to have more knowledge and awareness, and a pendulum can swing too far in the other direction.
It was funny because as I was going through your book, in your introduction, you talked about a blog post called, "Is Your Ex a Sociopath?" And I automatically answered, of course he is.
Absolutely.
To be fair, my ex got me thrown in jail and then ended up spending 11 years in prison. So I'm going to say that I can say yes on this one. But
wait, that is like the best example, because some people do have sociopathic exes. But it looks like what you just described. It doesn't look like the person who like broke up with you and didn't care about it, right? Like it's a different
he was a sociopath too. Just kidding.
They all are. They all are.
But that became your second most read piece. What were people saying in the comments? What did their responses tell you about how widespread this all was?
That everybody wondered it because everybody was so hurt by their ex that this word had become a way to explain how they could have been so hurt by a person that they loved. And they were using a term, right, a personality disorder, without understanding what it actually meant. When you go through the criteria of sociopathy, which is really antisocial personality disorder, suddenly almost nobody fits anymore. Like there's such evidence you have to have for how they lack true empathy and don't care about the law and all of these things. So I think everybody sort of had like a disgruntled aha moment. But I mean, really, they were hoping to find out that their ex was a sociopath and left with a different conclusion.
I think that's what makes your book so uncomfortable, is that you're not really talking about other people. You're talking about all of us. So let's go there. Why do you think we do this? Is it, I mean, clearly we're hurt. It's interesting because in a keynote speech that I give, I actually talk about the slow unraveling with my actual sociopathic ex. But one of the things that I realized, well, first, I thought it was just because his dad died. And so I was making a lot of excuses that I wish people made for me when my dad died. But I remember finding out he was addicted to meth, and I was so relieved. Like, I wasn't upset. I was relieved because at least it wasn't about me. And I think that might be what people cling to when it's like, okay, it's not that I'm unworthy, which is what we did in the 90s. It's like, or I did, whenever anyone broke up with me, it's like, oh no, how much weight do I need to lose? What plastic surgery do I need to get? Like everyone's telling me Jessica Simpson is fat right now and she looks like my body size. So there's something about it like, oh, it's something wrong with his brain. It's not about me. And that makes it easier to pass off. But then the funny part is, I don't notice a lot of people even breaking up with them at that point. They're just like, well, this is my partner. It's a sociopath.
Melissa, that I think is the most fascinating part. And I do sort of try to call out of like, listen, if you think that your partner is a sociopath, right? Like, you got to be thinking about if you should leave this relationship, not about me trying to, in couples therapy, like fix the parts of their brain that I can't fix because they lack there's a true biological deficit in empathy. And I think that is where these words get so tricky, is that it is a way to depersonalize hurt, right? This is just their stuff, their problem, their pathology. I didn't do anything wrong to deserve this. This is their issue. So it takes all the blame off of us. It makes it them as the issue. But then it's sort of like, we disempower ourselves by saying, I have no part in this. Fix yourself and I'll just wait. Whereas you need to think about what part you're playing or what you need to learn from this, quote unquote, toxic relationship and what you're going to do about it. And so often people are just like throwing their hands up and saying, it's not my problem. You fix it.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you think is the difference between understanding someone through a diagnosis versus weaponizing that diagnosis?
Understanding leads to empowerment and decision making. Like if you know your partner has a mental health disorder, then you have some decisions to make about if you're going to stay with them and support them through a treatment process, how you're going to respond and set boundaries when they're behaving inappropriately, what you're going to tolerate. And weaponization is this instant disavowal of responsibility and sort of anything that goes wrong, you point to this, right? You have a fight. It's like, well, we had a fight because you're so borderline, you get upset about everything. And it can be, at most extreme, weaponization of these words is a way of controlling and manipulating other people. And I have seen abusive people do that, use these words very effectively to control other people. And that's where I think it gets really scary.
I feel like if the person actually was a narcissist or sociopath, it wouldn't work. So if it is working, then maybe you're just abusing your partner.
And this is not always the case, but a lot of the time, the person doing the accusing has more of the traits or has more of the work to do. Not always,
so
but
much sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's funny because I'm now finding myself scanning through past relationships. I'm like, who was it? Which one was it? I immediately thought of a friend who I'm like, oh yeah, she kept calling her ex a borderline, kept saying her ex had borderline when she was clearly a narcissist. But then I had to step back and be like, but I am in this relationship by like the third prong, diagnosing both of them. So maybe I am too.
And this is tricky too, because some people are in a relationship with somebody who has, right, clinical level problems, but also like we're all a little narcissistic at some times in some relationships. We'll all have big reactions and big feelings sometimes. So if you just cherry pick symptoms, it's very easy to diagnose anyone with anything.
So walk me through what you call the negative cycle in relationships, because this feels like it could be the key to understanding why we're all so quick to diagnose.
So the negative cycle comes from emotionally focused therapy, EFT, and that's how I practice primarily in my couples work. And it is the concept that when you are stuck in a fight, the content doesn't matter, whether it's the dishes or somebody was late. It's the pattern underneath, which is the feelings you have and the behavioral responses you have that create a self-sustaining negative cycle. And that is the same every time in your relationship. So let's say you're late and I feel embarrassed, unimportant, unprioritized. I protect myself from those painful feelings by being super critical of you, right? And telling you that you're always late and you never think about me and you're so selfish. And when I attack you, it makes you feel, for example, not good enough. You never make me happy. Even when you try your best, it disappoints me. And so you get defensive and explain why you were late and why I'm overreacting. And the more that you do that, the angrier and more critical I get. And the more critical I get, the more defensive you get. And that creates this escalated negative cycle. people, when they're in that escalated emotional place, are not the best versions of themselves. They look borderline, let's say, bipolar, narcissistic, because they're so upset and you don't know what's happening under the surface. They can look uncaring, they can look unreasonable. And if you can get to that deeper layer of the vulnerable feeling, suddenly everyone seems a lot more human. It's very easy to empathize with them.
Yeah. And in that example, both people could justifiably call the other one pathological, right?
Yes, absolutely. Right. You're overreacting to this, right? You've got some kind of emotion regulation issue, or like you're refusing to listen to me and care about how I feel. It's so narcissistic of you. It's so easy to jump to those words, but it doesn't move the actual issue, the conversation, the healing forward at all.
I think some of the best work that I've ever done is learning to always look at my side, even when I really can't. There are some people in my life where I'm like, I know that the crazy one, I have witnesses now. Now I'm married. You're seeing it too, right? This is wild. Actually, my husband had to be the one to tell me, like, that's not normal, right? I've been thinking this my whole life, but I've been an only child. But it's so helpful because even when the other person is in the wrong, or like mostly in the wrong, like starts it, whatever, I can always find a way that I can show up better. And often when I do, I believe in the divine laws. I believe in the laws of reflection. Like it's being shown to me for some reason. Maybe I'm bringing that out in this person. I don't know what it is, but I find that it is very hard to find other people who automatically do that. Like you've had to be in like the self-development world for a really long time. So how do you help couples see that they're both stuck in this pattern when they're convinced that the other one is the problem?
It's a lot of moving people away from blame and pointing out the other person's failings and helping them access their own vulnerable emotions and then sharing them with the other person, which sounds very basic and is actually very hard to do because it's such a huge emotional risk to say, I felt really embarrassed and like you didn't care about me versus you're so selfish, you never think about my time. But if you can get people to access that vulnerability and share it, it is incredibly healing.
Have you had it happen yet where one person reads your book and then goes back to their partner and says, see, you're weaponizing therapy speak?
No, but
but it will come.
I'm sure it will happen, but I do literally write at one of the final chapters, like, I really hope people don't read this book and then use it as a way to like weaponization of therapy speak, because we are all trying our best here. Like these words, they offer an explanation, a roadmap. They're comforting. I, prior to all of this, like absolutely, when I was in grad school, wanted to diagnose everybody and make sense of my life in this way. Like I totally understand and empathize, but really the mental health self-help world has become really about like blaming others and not empowering ourselves.
I mean, I don't know if you spend any time on Reddit, but Reddit is such an interesting place. I do a lot of like market research on Reddit, and my pregnant guilty pleasure is reading about reality dating shows. But
we should talk about that, Melissa. Got a lot to say about that.
We can diagnose for them. I trust us. But it's so funny because like, okay, recently, example, Love is Blind was on, and there's this one character, and he was a weirdo, but then everyone's like, there's something wrong with him. Oh my gosh. Like he's clearly autistic. He's clearly this, like everyone diagnosing. But then the other side, all of a sudden it takes a couple days because one person needs to spark the right word, and then everyone jumps on, and then everyone's like, you're infantilizing a grown man. Now, like, you can search that man's name and infantilizing, and there's like thousands of posts now because so then people are arguing whether he's autistic or if he's being infantilized, which is just exactly how the internet works. But it reminds me of something that you say where you argue that social media made us think that we're experts.
Yeah.
And so how do we balance that celebration that people know what gaslighting means versus the reality that they don't really know what it means.
Oh, yeah. I mean, what I keep saying about social media is like, read something that resonates, let it spark your curiosity, not your confidence. Like get some information that makes you wonder and then take it off of social media and go find a reputable article or an expert, right? A therapist who can actually help you decide if this is accurate or not. And people just don't do that step. They just read more reels and memes that with confirmation bias, right? Like affirms what they have decided and they don't have they're not taking in any conflicting evidence that would maybe say it's not true. And people just go off and the algorithm is happy to contribute to that.
Well, and we're on one hand talking about diagnosing our partners or other people in our life, kind of weaponizing that, but it happens inward too. I think there's a harmful over-identification. I am often sharing how I think labels can be very helpful at first. And then I eventually realized that every single label I was attaching myself to ended up becoming a crutch I wasn't letting go of. It's like you're supposed to get rid of the crutches.
Yes.
And so I did that with ADHD, and I still match a lot of those symptoms. And I have for a very long time, and it was helpful for a minute, but then I got stuck in that and it felt very limiting. Same thing with being an empath. Same thing with sometimes my human design or my Enneagram, my attachment style, my astrology, like everything.
Astrological
it's like,
sign. Yes.
And it's like, okay, well now, but I can't do that because I'm stubborn. And so whenever it feels like it's closing in rather than expanding my life, I know to release the label, and I have been working on that, like just being more fluid through life, letting things pass through me instead of clinging or resisting. And so
I love that.
But then I guess I'm in the boat of where I share my stories. I shared my diagnoses stories of things. I shared my identification stories of things, and I've shared about releasing them. And so I'm curious, like, what about influencers who are sharing their diagnosis stories? Do you think overall they're helping or hurting people?
I'm actually writing a second book all about this. This is so funny. It's called You Don't Have ADHD. Because not everybody does. I think
everyone wants an excuse for that legal meth. I did for 12 years. Now that I'm off of it, it's much easier to release the label.
Right. I mean, everybody wants an explanation for why they lose things and why they're procrastinating. And if it's that, it feels better than like, oh, just being a human means I'm like this and that's hard and it sucks. It's not a fun answer. With influencers, I struggle because they are not sharing a full clinical picture of what this looks like. And really, it's about this expansion and cherry picking of symptoms of like, you can define everything through your diagnostic lens, should you choose to, right? Like, were you late to that event because of ADHD or because you were anxious and avoiding it or just because you're human and didn't, right? Like, there's a tendency to then over-identify everything in your life by this one thing. And it sort of takes away your uniqueness in many ways, but also weds you to being that type of person, to your point of like, well, this is the box that I'm in. So now everything sort of has to fit into that box. And disorders were supposed to be a way of understanding a struggle. Like, I'm not functioning the way that I need to be. Here's why. I'm going to do something about it, and I'm not going to let it hold me back. And now people have made their disorder their identity, and they're part of communities of people with this disorder, and they explain everything through it. And it's gone, again, the pendulum has swung too far.
And how common is it that somebody watches like one ADHD video, likes it and comments on it, and then by the end of the month, self-diagnoses?
Listen, somebody sent me one Scorpio video because I'm a Scorpio. My algorithm is flooded. And the more you read it, you're like, is that me? I guess that's me. Is that what my traits are like? It's like, what's going on? I don't care at all about this, but it knows how to pull you in and feed you stuff that you want. And guess what? ADHD symptoms resonate with everybody. They're relatable for everybody. And so, so many people now are self-diagnosing, and it makes sense, but not everybody has this disorder.
So one of my best friends was dating somebody, and I really liked the guy in person, but I had a hard time really seeing that this is going to work out. But it was so interesting because what I loved for her was actually having someone that could match some of her language of the work that she's done. What I ended up saying after they broke up was, I was like, it sounds like he had all of the language and none of the work.
Yes.
And one of the things you write about is how we now demand potential partners to disclose their attachment style, their therapy history, the red flags they're working on, boundaries, love language. And it almost feels like self-awareness has become performative.
Yes.
But it's interesting because what I loved about my husband when I met him was that we were both kind of on that self-growth track. But then I'm like, did I just get lucky because I was 29, he was 27. He could only go so far. Like, I feel like I would have almost been turned off if he was like, let's sit down and talk about our love language. Like, I don't know. At some point I'm like, this is too feminine.
Right. But it's also this, like, it is removing the vulnerability. Again, it's like, let's talk about these clinical, theoretical terms that explain our attachment styles and what we're working on in therapy and our holding space and whatever. But it's not actually living it with people. Like, tell me your attachment style all you want, but like, I want to experience what it's like to have that activated in our relationship and for us to work through it together and not do this meta level discussion about it. And these words do that. They create distance, right? This is my boundary, so you have to respect it. Versus when you did that, I felt really scared. Like, can we talk about having that not happen again? And there's just this rigidity and a lack of nuance. And it's like, these relationships are not supposed to be clinical seminars. They're just not.
It's kind of our way of controlling. We're like, well, if I know everything that happened, I can predict every possible outcome. But then that is actually skipping the work yourself of just taking things as they come, loving someone as they are. Yes, I do kind of want to know if you like murdered someone. Like, please tell me that. But you know, I have a pretty big heart. If you've done the work, I can forgive you.
Yeah. Or if you have a significant trauma history that would really inform your responses to some things, I do want to know that. And that you have a trauma history can't be the explanation or excuse for everything that happens in our relationship. Both ways, right?
Yeah. And another thing I told my friend in the conversation after her breakup was, I was like, I feel like I definitely need my husband to hold space for my emotions, for showing up poorly sometimes, for all the things. But I don't know if I ever actually want to hear him say the words holding space.
Yes. Yes. I mean, I say repeatedly, I have never had to say to somebody, this is my boundary. Like, you don't have to actually use any of these words. And I feel like these words don't have to leave the therapy room. They're to inform you and educate you and empower you. They're not to be necessarily like a direct part of the conversation.
So what does that look like then? Because I will say that there has been I don't know. I'm all over the place because I was going to say there's a certain progress in dating when you have more self-aware people. But then I'm actually thinking of like my two longest single friends that really want a partner and they're very in that world. So maybe that's just an illusion. But what would dating look like if we gave permission to people to just be messy and imperfect from the start? Would it just look like what it's always looked like until like 2010? Or I'm so giggly today. I don't know what's happening. I cannot stop laughing.
It's just such a fun topic is what it is.
It is.
Yeah, I think it would look like the olden times when you didn't have the language for this necessarily. But also, I mean, this coupled with the way we date nowadays, right? Which is on apps, which is swipe culture. There's somebody better. You sort of have to like prove that you're a worthy potential partner and you've done the work and you know what you're getting into with them. And it just makes it so hard because we're demanding a lot from people from the get-go. And we're sort of missing just like the magical moments of naturally, organically being with somebody, experiencing life with them, and not doing all of this conversation around self-growth and mental health at the same time.
What would be your non-negotiable things if you were like starting dating right now? Like, what is there questions that you'd bring up? I mean, of course, I think people are becoming better at like, yeah, let's actually find out if the person you're investing in wants to have kids. If that's your non-negotiable, things like that. How do you deal with money? Like, but beyond that, when it comes to the more self-help stuff, for me, I need to know that there's some sort of spiritual thread and some sort of growth thread. But where you've gone there doesn't really matter, because I also want to share the things that I've learned. I don't want to feel like you're weaponizing it all against me or like comparing what I'm doing. Like, I just want to know we're both interested in this.
Yes, I think that's what it is. Like that there is curiosity, that there's insight and a willingness to be reflective of, how you're operating and existing in the world and with me. And that if there's problems, you're willing to work on them with me or separately, right? But there's like an openness to that. Besides that, like I do not need perfection, and I don't want somebody who thinks that they've like figured it all out. Like they know themselves totally and they know their patterns. Like, because we don't. That changes over time. It's ever evolving. So people who come in super confident with all the words, that's not it.
I have, though. I know myself.
You do.
I'm the exception. They're the rule. Just kidding.
Well, I mean, I'll tell you that I actually got divorced this year. And just through meeting people very informally, everyone presents with a diagnosis. Everyone either has said, like, the person I used to be with has, and it's almost always borderline, almost always, and I have ADHD. Haven't been evaluated for it, but like I just know that I have this disorder. And so it really is the lens through which everyone is defining themselves and others and interacting in a dating space, and then even in relationships. It's still there.
I have this overwhelming urge next time somebody says like, oh, my ex was borderline. I just want to say, maybe you just weren't lovable enough. Just kidding.
I have a hard time with the casual diagnosis of borderline by people. I really do, with all of it. But
so what are some of the other most weaponized terms? Borderline, probably gaslighting is a big one.
Gaslighting is number one. I mean, gaslighting and narcissism, I think, are the top two right now. And honestly, they're mainly driven by women using them. It's mostly women who are using these terms. Although gaslighting is becoming popular with everybody. And then there's sort of the general, like, don't talk to me about trigger and trauma bond and how they're used incorrectly. And then, like red flag and boundaries is being misused a lot, that kind of thing.
How is triggers and trauma bond being used incorrectly? Those feel more straightforward to me.
So trigger originally meant that if you had severe trauma, like PTSD level trauma, a cue would bring up a trauma response, right? You were at war, you come home, you hear a car backfiring, it actually gives you trauma responses of flashbacks and panic attacks. Now people are saying like, you acting that way triggers me. You can't do that. But guess what? People act in ways that make you feel bad sometimes. Like I would love it if I could control people not making me feel bad, but you don't get to do that. That's just controlling. Trauma bond, I can't even talk about without getting stressed. Trauma bond, because it's been so misused, and I think that like I can't put the cat back in the bag on this one. Trauma bond means Stockholm syndrome. It's like the very confusing relationship an abuser and a survivor have, where the survivor will defend and protect the abuser. It is not because you went through a hard thing with someone, you are bonded because of it. That's just like normal social human bonding. But now people use it to mean like we're in a toxic workplace together. We're trauma bonded because of it, which is just not what it means.
So when I found out my ex was secretly robbing houses and was running the largest burglary ring of the Coachella Valley, and I got arrested for his crime, ended up in jail, got let out on my own recognizance, and the only person I wanted to call was him, and I actually did, and stayed with him afterwards while he was going through rehab until he cheated on me over and over again, then got arrested for another string of robberies. That's an actual trauma bond.
Yes, that's an actual trauma bond. Melissa, oh my God, what is your life? This guy was bad.
You gotta go listen to past episodes.
No. Whoa.
Yes, yeah. Yes. So, okay. But, yeah, triggers, I find it problematic when you are saying you triggered me versus I feel triggered. Because I think I use it incorrectly, or I use it more casually, but it's for my own self work. Like I am triggered by my kids all the time, especially when I'm like, wait, I feel irrationally mad at this thing right now. I am triggered. Mommy needs some space. But is it okay in that instance? Because I'm not bringing anyone else into my karma at that moment. I'm actually trying to work through it on my own.
Yes, I think absolutely. And listen, I'm kind of okay with the casual or self-use of these words. Like when you're talking to your girlfriends and you're like, oh, yeah, that was like such a toxic relationship. Like I'm okay with all of that. It's when people start to use it very seriously with their current partner or to like block their self-work that I think it's a difficulty. But I agree with you on trigger, saying like this obviously triggers me, a strong emotional response. I've got to figure that out and what to do about it. That's so healthy, so productive. When it's, you know, kid, you triggered me by crying, don't cry anymore. Much less so.
You mentioned that abusers are now using "you're gaslighting me" as a gaslighting tactic. How does that one work?
This is part of the bigger picture of abuse where abusers, it's called DARVA, where they reverse the victim and offender role. They defend themselves and then they attack the other person and then say, actually, I'm the one who's getting hurt right now, not you. So gaslighting is a good way of saying it, a good way of doing this, you know, when an abuser lies about something and their partner calls them out of like, that's not true. Abuser can say, you're gaslighting me because you're not agreeing with my recollection of events. You're trying to like take away my autonomy. That's gaslighting, right? That's reversing the victim and offender role very effectively.
Well, how about when two people genuinely remember an event differently? I think this is what's happening most often because our realities are so subjective. It's why we cannot use eyewitness accounts really in the court of law. They're just not reliable. Yeah. It's why now when I'm recalling my childhood, there's a lot of things where I'm like, my husband will ask me about something and I'll start to tell my normal story about it. And then I'll pause and be like, in telling this, something feels wrong. Like this is how I remember it. I remember it very clearly, but it doesn't make a lot of sense now that I'm saying it out loud. So it could be 100% wrong. And so how do you know who's right? Or does that not even really matter? Maybe even their recollection of events can give you the right insights. Yeah, especially if you're already looking at your partner as a narcissist or borderline, then you're going to filter everything through that. So then when something happens, you're creating the meaning already. You're creating the memory in real time and you're projecting your ideas onto the situation and the other person.
Yes. Yeah. That's the risk of these words. They become defining. Listen, having different memories of the same thing or disagreeing about what happened is just being human. It's being in any relationship. People rarely remember things the same way. We remember the feelings that we felt and our perception of what happened. And being able to allow different realities in a relationship is a critical part of not arguing every second of the day. So, and I say like, it's not gaslighting if a person says, I think you're wrong. I remember it differently. Like I that wasn't my experience at all, but like it's totally valid that is what you remember. Like I believe that is true for you and I'm not trying to take that away from you. It's just that I see it differently. You don't have to agree all the time. You can disagree and still validate each other and still empathize with each other. And people just get stuck on figuring out who was right, which is the least effective thing to do.
This is actually fascinating. I'm having some realizations right now because this might change my approach to arguments. My husband and I are already pretty good at this because we have just enough language. We don't bring it into the conversations. We do communicate very well. I do feel heard. I think he handles me very well. Right now, especially with my hormones, I will admit I am the problem. But it's interesting because so often in an argument, it feels like the two people are like trying to come to a resolution, trying to come to a shared reality, which sounds like it could be healthy on one hand. But like I just said a minute ago, like maybe there's more insight into how they're viewing it, like actually reaching the root. Like if I were to look at somebody, if we're in an argument, it's like, you always do this, blah, blah. Wait, hold on. I thought this was about the chicken. Leaving the chicken out, not cooking. I don't know, whatever it is.
Yeah.
I'm seeing that this is about something a lot deeper. Like I didn't see my part in this, like that way at all. If this is how you're seeing me, let's go back further. Like actually an invitation to get curious into how we got there in the first place could lead to a resolution that won't just last that dinner. It actually moves beyond that.
Yes. Here are like two critical things that we do in couples work. One is to go beyond the content of like the specifics of the fight and to go to the process. It's not about the chicken. It's not about the dish. It's about how you felt. And that usually goes back a long ways, right? Like it's usually an attachment wound or something that you're sensitive to or whatever that is. That's going to be a feeling that will come up again and again and again. So don't figure out what happened with the chicken and the dishes. Figure out what that feeling is, because when it surfaces, you can address that feeling together and not figure out who was wrong or who was right or what happened. Because that you're right. Maybe that like figures out that one moment, but it doesn't solve the bigger issue anyway. I also teach people you can have done nothing objectively wrong and still hurt your partner. And so you don't have to take the hit and blame yourself and be the bad guy or be wrong to say, I totally get why me doing this thing made you feel that way. And I hate that you feel that way. And I'm glad that you told me. And like, I will be more aware of that. And people just feel like it has to be somebody was right, somebody was wrong, somebody apologizes and takes the blame, somebody feels better. But it's so much more nuanced than that.
Oh, another really great point you made. You talked about how only 1% of the population has narcissistic personality disorder, but it feels like 90% of exes are narcissists, according to social media. But you said something that I underlined where it's like, if every ex is a narcissist, you're the common denominator. Like that's true. But there's also this phenomenon, we could call it, where people replay patterns in their lives. Like very often somebody comes from an abusive parent and then they will end up in an abusive relationship. That was a big eye opener for me. I remember in my crazy story, there was a moment where I was sitting there realizing, like, I was scanning through people I knew from high school and was like, oh, that person would have never ended up in this situation. This person would have walked away at red flag 1.5. Like, I'm over here collecting them like they're going to complete some sort of a set. So there again, I played a part in my story, even though there was an offender, I was a victim, but I also was victimizing myself in different ways. And so where's that line of realizing, or maybe it's not accidentally gaslighting somebody who might very well be with a narcissist or something like that, and might very well be attracting multiple narcissists because that's a pattern they're playing out. How do you discern between, okay, yes, this person has a pattern versus this person just has a pattern of diagnosing people who they want to turn into the wrong?
I sidestep the figuring out the veracity of it altogether, because I'm not going to be able to accurately diagnose the string of their exes. Like, I don't know, and I don't want to weigh in on that. It's not my place clinically.
Sounds like
ethically.
A fun game.
People do love doing it, but yeah.
It's like Christmas garland. Just string it together.
But I think the what I say about this is, if people use these words seriously, I take them seriously. And either we look at it in a very does this actually fit? Do you really think this? Because if you do, what do we do about it? We don't stop at, that's true, you've just been, treated poorly, they suck. But to your point, it's not that you're to blame for how they treated you, but how can you learn from this and make different choices so that you don't put yourself in the same situation? Because maybe you are picking these people with these traits, in which case, you need to stop doing that. And we got to help you figure out where are the missing pieces for you, the self-worth, right? The discernment, whatever that looks like, the boundaries. And it always comes, all roads lead back to us, our awareness, our growth, our empowerment, what we're going to do, our agency. And people are just, they're outsourcing their agency to other people.
I'm also thinking about love bombing, which I know that you mentioned too, but this got brought up in Reddit. I've been on Reddit too much while pregnant. I go really well with my social media detox until my first trimester of pregnancy. And now, so I'm referencing a lot of things that happened about a month ago. I'm back in normal life now, but I spend a lot of time on Reddit. And there was this whole conversation about love bombing that came up as well. And but it feels like it gets at something really sad, because how do you tell the difference between enthusiasm and manipulation in early dating? And is there a chance that sometimes we're just so traumatized, or we're so stuck in our ways that we can't receive genuine affection? Like, where's that line? Are we just expecting people to kind of be off-putting? Like, what are your thoughts on love bombing?
Love bombing has definitely increased in recent years. And I think part of it to me is sad, because it's part of the no feelings culture of like, everybody is too cool to like each other and to show that they like each other. And so if somebody does, it's overwhelming, right? It's like clingy, it's needy, it's too much. If you send flowers or a card, or you want to see them 2 days after a date, it's like, whoa, slow down, right? Stop coming at me with your anxious attachment, love bombing, toxic ways.
You're dating in Santa Monica, aren't you? You're not in Boston. This is a fun topic. It's not supposed to be this fun, but it is.
Well, I mean, I agree. I mean, I love talking about this, but it really, I think, like, sheds light on sort of how we're operating with each other in these really tough, critical, unforgiving ways. And again, like, I think the biggest issue is real narcissists, when you're with them, you don't identify that you're with them, because they're so good at insidiously making you doubt yourself and lose your reality. So people's quick confidence about using these words is what makes me think that they're the wrong words to use, because it's not often that you're like, that was gaslighting, and you're right. Gaslighting is, again, like slow, insidious, like very difficult to identify. And people should be aware of it and looking out for it, but also like aware that it's hard to spot, and you might need other people's take to see it.
So is this real love bombing? The ex that is becoming the star of this episode. So the day I met him, he asked me to go to dinner that night, and we picked me up for dinner. He gave me a diamond necklace. The next day he gave me an emerald ring. It was like a really big, gaudy, kind of like would fit more of a 70-year-old, but I wore it nonetheless, ring. And then asked me to go to Vegas that weekend, which this might be the gaslighting part. All of a sudden he disappeared for the weekend. I regretted chickening out. Turns out he brought another girl for that weekend. Found out a little bit later. He lied to me about it. he gaslight me finding the photos on his phone. But then we did go to Vegas the next weekend. Before I found out, he bought me Versace glasses. We stayed in the suite at the Venetian, paid for all the things. Is that love bombing? And how do I get out of my 22-year-old brain? Well, this is a knight in shining armor sweeping me out of my life and into his, because that's how I internalized it at that moment.
Yeah. And there's a world in which somebody could have done all those things minus the abusive stuff, right? Like lying to you, bringing another girl, and it'd be like, wow, they just have this money to spend. It's how they show their affection. It's a lot, but it's okay. It's healthy.
I want to believe in that reality. And I did then, and I do now.
Love bombing, a big piece of it is it's about rushing the pace. It's about like getting too close too fast. And it's about taking away everything else in your life. So like they're the only person. They're ingratiating themselves with gifts, but also like constant communication and controlling your time together and spending a ton of time together, because they're pulling you out of your life, out of your friendships, out of your family. And they're creating like this really quick, sudden, intense vortex that's just the two of you, because you're soulmates and nobody else understands. So anybody who's like isolating you as a part of it, that's not a good sign.
In your expanded definition, I don't know if I would have necessarily said he was love bombing, because those other things they kind of came into play, but I don't think he was doing them. I was kind of doing them. He was just flippant about money because he was stealing it all. So it didn't feel like he was giving it away. I learned a lot about his mindset during the rehab phase when he was coming clean about stuff, which, by the way, he ended up just continuing doing everything he was doing anyways. So I don't think rehab worked for him, but there was at least a spilling of details that I found helpful to know. And I think it was the combination of the meth and the stolen money, but he's like, it just always felt like free money. And I'm like, yeah, it's not free to the people you took it from.
Yeah, see, but if we put it in a bigger context of who he was and how he behaved, I think we could say it was love bombing. It's part of this bigger abusive picture, right, of how he treated you. If he hadn't done any of the other things and he just was really wealthy and wanted to shower you with gifts, it might still be perceived as too much, but not necessarily an abuse tactic. And it can be hard to know that line. And sometimes you find that line when you push back against it and say, this is lovely, but it's way too much. It feels too much. We've just met each other. Can we slow down? Can you tone down the gifts a little bit? And if they react negatively, right? If there's like anger or if you see some kind of bad response, that's information.
A bad response would have been on my side. Is there a version where I say, this is too much and I love it, just keep going and don't turn evil? But going to the boundary side, because I feel like this might be helpful, a little more relevant to a lot of people. And I know this is also one of them that is very weaponized, but you talk about how most boundaries aren't actually boundaries. They're just rules that we want other people to follow. So what is a real boundary versus a fake boundary?
Boundaries are really about protecting your sense of safety and autonomy in a relationship. So there's some that I call universal boundaries. It's like, it's never okay to physically assault somebody, never okay to steal from somebody, right? Like there are certain lines that we know the law says should not be crossed. Those are given boundaries. But then we all have a lot of individual boundaries of things that make us feel safe and secure in a relationship that vary from person to person. And the thing about boundaries is you enforce them. You don't make other people enforce them for you. So it's not like you can't do this thing or you have to do this thing. It's if you do this thing, I'm going to have to respond in this way to protect and take care of myself. And I think people don't realize that it's up to them to make sure their boundaries are being upheld. And boundaries change over time. And in relationships, they sometimes have to be negotiated, and people dislike that idea too.
I have an example with my mother. Love her dearly. And also, I'm her only child. And so I feel like I get a lot of, there's just more expectations. Like even just having my own children, there was something about having a second children where I was like, oh, this isn't all my fault or all to credit me. There's some sort of releasing that happens when you start having more kids, because you just see like these are different personality types, blah, 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 versus just like, you're going to act how I think you should act. And if you're not, then I didn't teach you well enough. And so I feel like I still get a little bit of that. Example, recently I got a dog. I got a puppy, and this is my soul dog. I had a soul dog for 15 years, and I really felt like something was missing without one. Long story short, a dog popped up in my life. I ended up taking the dog home. This dog is exactly like my 15-year dog. Exactly. We all feel, my husband and I both feel like we just got the dog back. Every day I stare at him. It is magic. And I'm like, this is the most magical thing that's ever happened in my life. Like Maverick came back to me. So that's the situation where like there was no even question about it. I found myself making decisions that I was like, how am I even getting a dog while pregnant right now? Anyways, so my mom finds out I have this dog, and she like lays into me like, well, you didn't think about Christmas and you didn't think about Thanksgiving, and it's going to make it so much harder. And I was like, listen, I can't make all my decisions based on whether the grandma that I see a couple times a year is going to be inconvenienced or not. Like, I'm building a family and a life. Long story short, got very heated multiple times on the phone. And I'm like, she's like, I can have opinions. And I'm like, you can. And also, I don't have to stay here and listen to them. So I'm going to be hanging up. So is that the correct use of enforcing the boundary?
Yes. You didn't say, listen, you can't have opinions about this, or like, you're not allowed to feel a certain way about this. You said, I don't have to listen to it. And not when you're not, especially in this way, with that tone of voice, right? And those words. Yes, that is you protecting, enforcing your own boundary. What people do is say, like, the way you're talking to me is crossing my boundary, you're violating my boundaries. So what? People are just going to keep doing it. Like, people aren't going to do that work for you.
Yes. Okay, good. Good, because it actually really worked. I'll give my mom credit. The next time we were on the phone, it felt like I shifted timelines. Like, she was all of a sudden like, I know how it feels when you get a dog and now it's part of your family. So I just have already talked to Pete about this. And it's like, oh, wow. I'm really enjoying this version of you. So, but again, there were a couple phone calls that I didn't handle myself quite as well. I just got defensive. And so there is something about like cleaning up your own side of the street. I'm like, okay, this is how I'm going to handle it with no expectations, but this is how I'm going to protect my peace. And when I did that, she met me in peace. And I feel like people don't give enough credit, and doesn't always work, especially if you are with a narcissist or with an abusive person, or you catch my mom on a bad day. Or you catch me on a bad day, if I'm being totally honest. But I find overwhelmingly is the case that when I find my peace in a situation, regardless of how the other people show up, they show up a little bit differently.
Mm-hmm. And that's all that we can do, right? Is, like you said, clean up our side of the street. Do what we can to build the life and the relationships that we want to have based on how we're acting and interacting, and not sort of outsourcing again, like that power, that agency, and like hoping other people show up the way that we want them to or make the changes we want. That's just a recipe for disappointment. You do your side, you do your work. That's all that you can really do. And part of setting boundaries is saying, if the other person doesn't do their work, I'm going to respond in a certain way by disengaging, by leaving, whatever that looks like.
Well, and we've spent a lot of time in this interview kind of holding up a mirror for ourselves. Like, okay, are we doing this? Because we are, if you're listening to this, we are self-development people. And so we might lean a little bit toward that. But I find the most chilling part of your book to be the idea that abusers have adopted therapy speak better than anyone. How are they using it?
Like everybody else is, but again, like, this is back to, if you think you're with somebody who has a disorder or is abusive, you should maybe think about leaving them and not staying and controlling them. And I have seen abusers use all of these words to lay all of the blame on the other person, but not want to leave them, want them to feel bad, for them to feel guilty, responsible, to not speak up, right? And make it sort of impossible for them to be an equal partner in the relationship. These words, when they're used incorrectly, they're a great way of controlling and manipulating people. And that is not the goal of these words. If you're concerned somebody has a genuine disorder, there's a different way to approach that conversation.
And then for the other side, you mentioned earlier that the alternative you offer to diagnosis is vulnerability. So instead of like, you're a narcissist, you say, I felt embarrassed when you didn't listen to me in front of our friends or whatever. And I know that feels kind of terrifying to some people, which I guess the first question is, why is it so scary to name our actual feelings? Like, where does that come from?
Oh, it's nothing. I mean, nothing we need more as humans than to be seen for who we are and accepted. And on the reverse side, nothing scarier than being vulnerable and honest and having it not be received or be rejected or judged. So we're really at war with ourselves of like, we need someone to see all of us and love and accept all of us. But the idea of opening up and being rejected is like terrifying, absolutely terrifying. That's a great question. I mean, you're not as defended, right? Like if it doesn't come back to you the way you want, you're going to be incredibly hurt. You might be triggered, right? You might have a fight or flight response. Your attachment style might be activated. Whereas when you're defended and you're accusing somebody, You're on the attack. You feel like you're in a position of power. It's sort of like how anger can protect us from other harder feelings beneath. Like you're in the driver's seat, but you're not actually accessing the real part of you that needs to be heard.
And I think it's pretty impossible to build intimacy without vulnerability anyways. And so, yes, we can say, okay, yeah, but if I open up, if I show this side of me and then I'm rejected, then they're actually rejecting me. It's not just the meth doing the rejecting or whatever your scapegoat is. That one was mine. But I think we often don't see that, okay, but we're actually creating our worst case scenario anyways. Because yeah, we're not giving somebody the chance to reject us, but we're never going to be accepted for who we really are if we never show who we really are. And so we're just playing out that pattern by putting our walls up, creating our own heart calluses. And so what's there to lose?
Yeah. I mean, this is the hard part of where we are now with interacting, is like, it is scary to be vulnerable though, because if you are, it can be weaponized against you too. You know, saying that you're embarrassed could be turned into a diagnosis or an attachment issue or whatever. Like we've given each other such little grace to be human and vulnerable and imperfect that it's very scary to do that with anybody now.
Yeah, I'm actually going through examples like a Rolodex again, Rolodex reference showing my age. But yeah, I think those are the people, there's two that are coming into my mind that ultimately felt unsafe, which is another word that I actually kind of have a problem with when other people say it, because it's, you're not safe for my feelings right now. It's just like overused, but there is like an idea behind it that I can't really capture and somewhere else. But two people in my life. One was the person that I was like, okay, let me show up with my issue. And I would say like, I'm sorry, I should have handled it this way, even though I knew they were 90% wrong. And they would always be like, well, I'm really glad you figured out your side of this. And then it would come up later on. And then the other person, kind of the same thing where it's like, 1 ounce of vulnerability and it's like everything. Well, you said that you're too emotional during these things. I'm like, God, I wish I would have said nothing. Yes. So how do you handle that on this side? Because I find myself just like being more tight-lipped than ever around these types of people. But at the same time, I don't want to accidentally, I don't know.
No, that's the right response. I mean, frankly, that's the right response. Like in couples work, we say like nothing said in here can be weaponized. The point isn't to get ammunition for how you can make sure the other person knows that they were wrong. If they make an admission, like see and accept that and don't hold it against them forever, because then you're just like worsening the problem. So psychological safety is, it's an established concept. I think it was Amy Edmondson, of the idea that like when you say something, you admit a mistake or you share a feeling or whatever it might be that's scary and vulnerable, most of the time it'll be well received and you won't be punished for it. It won't be held against you, right? Not all the time, most of the time. And there is a sense of safety with some people, you can say a lot of stuff to, and they'll be like, hey, I hear you. I'm glad you told me, right? Or like, thank you for admitting that, versus what you experience. And like, if somebody is going to take what you tell them and use it against you, the right thing is to not tell them.
Well, if you could leave listeners with just one thing, one shift in how they think about the people they love, what would it be?
I would say let go of the labels. I mean, if a disorder makes sense, pursue that with compassion or consider what you need to do about it. But besides that, let people be messy, imperfect, not necessarily pathological, and stop viewing everything through a clinical lens.
Thank you. You probably get the worst of it too, because the couple times I thought of therapy in the last couple of years was like, I really need to go with my mom right now so that they can tell her.
You're a narcissist.
You're a little bit crazy. No, I find a lot of people do want to go to therapy though, to like Because they're gonna agree with me, and so I will have backup to show you, backup with a badge to show you that you're the narcissist, that you are borderline.
Oh yeah, I've been recruited into that, or attempted recruit. Yeah,
and then it turns around you're the narcissist, ma'am. Sorry. Well, for listeners who are really resonating, they want to read the book and learn more about working with you. Where's the best place to connect?
So you can go to my website, Dr. Isabelle Morley, or ironically, you can find me on Instagram with the same handle, Dr. Isabelle Morley. And you can find my book, They're Not Gaslighting You, everywhere they sell books.
Want to work through this week's Mind Love Challenge with others? The Mind Love Collective is a free community with monthly themed calls, weekly challenge accountability, and real support throughout the year. So join us at mindlove.com/join. Thanks for giving your mind a little love today, and I'll see you next week.